Jonathan Macri, Knicks Film School. How are things? I'm surprised you didn't come in the Lakers jersey, man. What's the vibes?
Man, that was so weird for me. Aside from the fact that it was a little tight, I'll even put that aside. But just I have not put on. I did own a Michael Jordan jersey as a kid, so I had that. But I think every kid owned a Michael Jordan jersey. So it's been like 30 years since I put on a non-Knicks jersey. So yeah, it was strange.
It wasn't really on brand for you.
it was not on brand. I mean, I love Shaq, and I was happy to rep for Shaq. But yeah, no, it was fine.
Shouts to House of Highlights. Great people there. You're an excellent debater. Were you on the debate team at Regis?
I forgot that you knew I went to Regis. I don't exactly put that out very often.
You're Jonathan Macri. We have to know. You know Nardwar. You know. Go ahead though.
You're very funny. So funny you asked that. If we're really getting into this, I'll be brief. So the high school I went to, as you just said, Regis High School, had a robust speech and debate team. I was on that team. I never did a debate in my life while I was there. I was on the speech portion. So that's where the dum-dums like me got something ahead of time, and they just memorized it and they said it with vim and vigor. It wasn't until I got to I think I did I did debate in college, and then I ended up in law school, and I was I think I was the editor-in-chief of the mock trial team there for a year. So I got my debating practice in over the years, to the point where arguing about James Harden with you was not completely out of my depth.
I was so happy you went first on that because I just wanted to attack Shaq. So I was thinking, if I go first, do I have to start with Harden? But I was so happy that you went first and you got me into rhythm. I could just attack Shaq, It was fun.
Yeah. And my whole plan was to start off by attacking Harden because, here's the thing about Shaq. What can you say about Shaq? He 10, 15 years, he put everybody in the basket.
Yeah.
But, that's, what else can you say about it? He ducked the ball a lot.
Right. All right. Let's shift to the Knicks.
Sure.
A lot of movement. I told you when we were speaking, I don't think it was anything too splashy, but the Knicks have made incremental moves over the course of time to get better. But with that said, is this team now built to win an NBA championship?
What's your faith level in Karl Anthony Towns? I really do. I really do think that it's the question that the night of the Towns trade, I found myself asking, and that's unfair, because you can't separate the Karl Anthony Towns conversation from the Jalen Brunson conversation. And this is a conversation we've been having in the NBA for decades. How many minus defenders can a team afford to have on the floor for a significant portion of important games? And it's the question we asked a year ago when they made the Towns trade, and it still is, for all the talent that the Knicks have assembled, and for as well as that talent fits together in some respects. At the end of the day, the end of game one against the Pacers was an all-time debacle. But even putting those 3.5 minutes aside, for large portions of that series, they just couldn't stop the Indiana offense. And if that series takes place next playoffs, okay, but replace the Pacers with the Cavs because Halliburton's hurt. What is going to change? Are we just going to bank on Jared Allen not bringing it because it's May? So when you're it's a very long-winded way of saying I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I could sit here today and be yes, 1,000% the Knicks could win a championship this year. I don't know that, because there is still that structural question mark that I have.
Styles make fights. I don't think they will see anyone like the Indiana Pacers this year. Even if they get all the way to the end and they go again, Jokic would be tough. And then obviously if they played OKC, but Indiana was just different. They just hit you with a different style, and that was tough for the Knicks to deal with.
It was, and I think they had seen it the previous year. Obviously, a different version of the team, but and this is where I'll and I've been hard on Towns. I like Towns. I think Towns gets too much crap, but I've been hard on him at times. Where I will come to his defense is Isaiah Hartenstein, the previous season, he wasn't an all-defense level player, but he certainly played on an all-defense level at times during his last year with the Knicks. And by the end of that Pacers series, they were running him around. Like it was like he was like, what? Which direction do I turn? So it's unfair to me to look at what maybe happened to Cat at times during the Pacers series and be like, oh, that's all him. This is what they do to teams. They did it to freaking OKC at times, and and that's the best defense in years. So look, I fear the Cavs, or I respect the Cavs. Let's say that I respect the Cavs. And look, the East it's getting a lot of crap. There's some interesting teams, If we're sitting here and it's the end of, or middle of May, and we're sitting 2-2 against the Hawks, in round 2, like I'm not gonna be shocked. So we'll see what happens.
Do you believe the Magic are now top tier contenders in the East with the addition of Desmond Bane?
Define top tier contenders they could win the title or they could win the East.
They could win the East. They're on the same level as, let's say, the Knicks and the Cavs, even though I do think the Knicks are above everyone at this point in terms of roster construction and experience together.
No. I don't think they're on the same level as the Knicks and the Cavs. If I am sitting and analyzing your team and I don't have a clear answer to the question of what does your offense look like in the final 5 minutes of a close game, or at least not an answer to my liking, I don't know that I could put you on the same tier as a team with Jalen Brunson or Donovan Mitchell.
Is there a world that Franz and Paolo could be better than Cat and Brunson at some point?
Oh, yeah. Well, is there a world where if we're really keeping it a buck, I certainly think that there are GMs out there right now. Now Paolo's an interesting player because Paolo's very divisive because he's kind of an anti-analytics guy. That said, I think there are GMs out there right now who would certainly take that pairing moving forward,
100%,
starting with the season over Brunson and Cat, because I just think there's some teams out there that have no interest in Karl-Anthony Towns or his contract and all the things that he brings to the table. I would still, for this season, to me, having Brunson to not only lead you through a playoff series, but also to close out a playoff game, and to say nothing about the big shots that he's capable of hitting, I think there was enough there for me that I put him and thus the Knicks ahead of the Magic. That's me.
I wanted to talk to you about the backup point guard situation with this Knicks team and the dynamic of Tyler Kolek, Dennis Smith Jr., Malcolm Brogdon.
Is that a dynamic? Are you calling that a dynamic now? That's what that is?
The backup PG. The backup PG.
I mean, you really want my honest answer? I don't think any of those guys should factor in prominently to this team. Whoever makes the roster, look, not to get super boring for a second, but if you look at the Knicks roster and you look at their top 9, and none of the players you just mentioned are in their top 9, whoever, it doesn't even matter who ends up starting. Like, off the bench, they're going to have Yabusele, they're going to have Clarkson, and they're going to have 2 of Mitchell Robinson, Josh Hart, and Deuce McBride. All of those bench players are walking into camp, at the very least, expecting to play somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes a night. And yes, I think one of the reasons Mike Brown was brought in was to reduce the workload, but you're not cutting, Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. These guys aren't going to go down to like 30 minutes a night, or even maybe 32. There's a very long-winded way of saying I don't know that they're going to be able to run something more than a 9-man rotation when everyone's healthy. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to be healthy, so that's a different conversation. If you're asking me who's the 10th man on the roster, who is like who should get that spot, I would say Brogdon.
I mean, he's the best basketball player out of them.
But there's also been, and you're in this deep enough where I'm sure you've heard some of the whispers about him over the years.
Yeah, 100%. I heard he's a good person, but he just wants his role to be bigger, even at this point.
Which is, again, maybe that's the answer to the question of why is a guy who was the 6th man of the year 2 years ago, why was he available for a non-guaranteed contract on, what is it, September 14th?
If you told me he was putting up the numbers he's putting up on a Wizards team at this point of his career, I'd be surprised. I would say he underachieved a little bit at this point. Like, I thought he would be doing more.
But how do you? It is a more general question.
Okay.
If you have a veteran player that is stuck on a team that is not only bad, but a team that is designed to be bad and is trying to lose, how do you account for anything that they do on that team? Put even aside stats.
You can't. We've seen this. We've seen players on bad teams not do well on really good teams, and then we've seen them be the difference maker on great teams. Look at Denver. Look at the Celtics. I mean, they have those players that came from somewhere else. Maybe they were the star. Gordon on Denver, right? He was on a terrible team. Goes there. They win a championship. Same with Wiggins with the Warriors. Terrible team. Good stats, bad team guy. But look, they put those teams over the hump to win an NBA championship.
Or even if look at the Knicks roster. Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson didn't have a great shooting season for Utah last year.
Yeah.
Maybe not even really the year before that. I'm not putting a ton in that, I think are there going to be other issues with Clarkson and how much he could share the court with Jalen Brunson? Sure. But I think there's still a very good offensive basketball player in there. I'm less sure about Brogdon only because of the injuries and how much he's been banged up over the last few years. That said, he's a steady hand. The guy is capable of getting from point A to point B on a basketball court. You can run a pick and roll, all the things that you need to be able to do at a commensurate level, and he's got size, and that's the thing. Tyler Kolek, wizard with the ball. There were enough questions about him defensively that when you pair it with the shot, never really came around last year, and maybe that's unfair. He's a rookie, but still, I don't know. I'm not as deep into the Kolek hive as some members of my Knick brotherhood.
Love Tyler Kolek's game, but the NBA is just a different animal. And my thing is, can you guard anyone and can you guard everyone? And I don't know if I see that.
That's a great way of putting it.
I don't know if I see that for Tyler Kolek in the playoffs.
I mean, so if we're skipping to that conversation, that's ultimately why. Because I think Tyler Kolek, year two, rookie year, didn't get a lot of time, didn't get consistent time for sure. Ups and downs. Even if you want to throw this last summer league, which was not great at times, if you want to throw that out the window, I could fully see him coming in year two, having some really productive moments if he was the 10th man, however much that player would play. If you're, again, fast forwarding me to the only thing that matters for this team, which is May and, God willing, June, and I need 10 minutes of action from a guy that I know is going to be able to give me something on both ends, I'm probably going to have more faith in a Brogdon than I do a Kolek.
Championship or bust for the New York Knicks?
Finals or bust. For sure. Finals or bust, given the state of the East, given all the investment that they've put in this team, given the fact that your other primary competition in this conference is a team that really showed up a couple of years ago in the playoffs. That said, you want to talk about a team that had New York's number last year, talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Those games were the games where all of the, or most of the Cavs players played. Those games were not competitive. Actually, no, let me catch myself. They played a game early in the season that was actually very competitive. The Knicks had a lead late in that game, but that was very early in the season. I think it was the third game of the year. Toss that out, and then the end of the year, the Cavs. So really, what am I talking about? I'm talking about one really bad game after the All-Star break.
Back-to-backs, a lot of back-to-backs, right, against the Cavs.
Yes, they had the misfortune of playing the Cavs on some back-to-backs. I think the Cavs offense, they're not the Pacers offense in terms of how they could give the Knicks specific fits, but Knicks defense struggled against the Cavs offense last year. All that said, if you're at the Knicks and you can't make the finals this year, man, when is there going to be a better opportunity with this iteration of the roster? Unless you're telling me that there's a Giannis trade sitting out there next summer, and look, even if there is, that line's
you know how to podcast because you got to bring the big name into it.
But here's the thing: the day they made the Mikal Bridges trade with Brooklyn, They said to the rest of the league, we now may be out on that bigger trade if it ever comes to pass. And clearly they were either sick of waiting or they felt like we're going to have enough with this, or whatever the case may be. But like, I think this is the best opportunity they'll have. If they get to the finals and they lose in 6 games to OKC or Denver, like, is that going to be Heartbreak City? Yeah, I mean, obviously, it'd be terrible to lose. They can't make that far and lose. But, like, hey, Knicks haven't got to a final since 1999. I was 16.
Yeah. What are the biggest X factors for you? Because I look at it as, you mentioned the defense big time, right? Can you have a good enough defense with Cat and Brunson playing major minutes? And then it comes back to Cat and Brunson again for me on the offensive side. Can they play off each other better? And we saw Mike Brown doing a great job of that with the Kings.
Yeah, X factors. My biggest X factor is not related to any one player. It is related to the fact that for the last 5 months of last season, the starting 5 of the Knicks looked like they either had never played together or didn't want to play together. And Josh Hart took a lot of the blame for that.
How many seasons back are we talking about now?
I'm talking about last year.
Last year, okay.
From January 1st until the end of the regular season and including the playoffs, I mean, that unit barely outscored teams, I think, over the last 3.5 months of the regular season. And then they were outscored in the postseason. And then finally Tibbs made the starting lineup change and put in Mitchell Robinson for Josh Hart. But just anytime you watch them, it just was not cohesive. The sum was definitively, or the result was definitively less than the sum of its parts. Mm-hmm. So my biggest X factor is, can Mike Brown come in, and whether it's something with Mikal Bridges mentality-wise, something with OG Anunoby mentality-wise, something with getting Brunson and Towns back to the point where they were early in the year, where those guys were actually engaged in pick and roll often and it was productive. Whatever it is, like, you have to get your best players to elevate each other. And that did not happen with the Knicks last year. Far too often it did not happen. So that's my biggest X factor. Other X factors, Mitchell Robinson's health is a big one. The Brunson Towns thing is perpetually going to be an issue. But again, if Mitchell Robinson is healthy, like, maybe you don't need to have Towns on the floor to close a tough game. And I want to see, and this relates to my first point, but it's a little bit more specific. Brunson's going to have the ball a lot. Towns is going to have the ball a lot. You have 2 guys in Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby that I think wanted to have the ball at times last year more than they did. And how does that work? Because they're both still here. And you need both of those guys to be at their best on both ends of the court if you're going to really be a contender. So can Mike Brown do something to get both of those guys, I don't want to say more involved in the offense. That's more the case with Bridges. OG, I think he's plenty involved. But, like, what does it look like? What does Mikal Bridges look like in an offense with Mike Brown? Because under Tibbs, it didn't always look great.
All right, I'm going to bring this all back around to the Knicks. Don't worry. But the biggest story in the league right now is Kawhi Leonard. I know we've talked a lot about Regis this episode already, but did you go to high school with Pablo Torre?
Yeah, so I was a couple years ahead of Pablo. Also, proud member of the Hearn Speech and Debate Society. He was little Pablo Torre when I first met him because he was short as a freshman, as was I, by the way.
Is he not short anymore? I mean, I
know I was about to say we're both still pretty short, but he was an extraordinarily talented debater. He was even for Regis, he was super smart, which is saying something. And so it does not surprise me in the least that he is doing what he's doing right now. And but he's been doing this stuff for years.
Are you concerned with him hinting at the Knicks and Jalen Brunson next?
I'm not concerned. Look, see, this relates to the larger story, right? Because, and I was talking about this a little bit on my pod last night. Like, the reason I think the league is in a tough spot right now, and specifically Adam Silver, and I think why his comments at the Board of Governors press conference the other day were almost undersold the powers that are invested in him as the commissioner of the league, is I think he's very leery of opening Pandora's box here. Because if you do open it, where does it end and how far does it go? Because as many have said, like, depending on what your definition of circumventing the cap is, like, you know, every team, I'm sure every team has a player that has used the owner's plane, you know, at one point or another. So, like, where do you draw the line? So that's why I don't know that I'm super concerned yet.
Because him and Dan Patrick did mention the Knicks together. Specifically.
So, and I know, you know, Pablo wouldn't do that if he had nothing.
Wow. Now that's interesting what you just said.
I just don't, like, I know Knicks fans are like, Knicks for clicks, you know. I'm sure Pablo has something there, but the fact that he hasn't done anything with it yet would lead me to assume that maybe he doesn't have the goods like he has the goods with this Kawhi thing, or at least that's what I hope.
Yeah. You know, we're both in media, but we're both from New York, and I don't know if you realize this, but there's an interesting dynamic around the way his type of investigation and journalism is perceived on different sides of the spectrum. What are your thoughts on that type of journalism? Because that's definitely not my bag. It's not my bag, you know?
So, I mean, it's such a big conversation. In my mind, it's a much bigger conversation because one could look at journalism, where it's now, not only sports journalism, but journalism in general, and say this is a dying industry. Because
it's just different. It's not dying. It's just different.
Well, it's so.
Oh, unless you don't consider everybody in new media journalists, then yes, you know what I mean.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's changing.
Yeah.
And whereas if you were a journalist, like, jobs were always there because everybody read newspapers, and, like, even, you know, since newspapers have kind of gone the way of the dinosaur, there were other outlets. Now, like, if you're in the journalism business, whatever that means, and you are not dipping your toe in other waters to generate, for lack of a better word, traffic, eyeballs, whatever, viewers, anything, listens, downloads, whatever you want to say, like, it doesn't matter how good of the job you're doing.
100%.
You are probably not long for this world as an entity. So you go to Pablo, and this is playing out on Twitter. This is playing out on his podcast. This is a different thing than we've ever seen. To me, it's someone who is looking at the landscape and being like, fuck it, my work is good. I trust my reporting. I'm just going to present it and go about doing it in a way that is different than maybe what people have traditionally gone about doing. But I think that is a necessity of the media age that we are living in. It's a survival instinct. It's not doing bad work. He's doing fantastic work. But people are still, I think, being very critical because it is just, it's different. And I think, and it's a different world we're in now.
All right, I got to hit you with some rapid fire before we get out of here, Jonathan.
Oh boy, I'm bad at rapid fire, but I'll try.
You know what? You don't even have to be that rapid, all right?
No, I'll be rapid.
No, I want to hear explanations too, so don't be too rapid. But
okay,
the greatest scorer in the history of the New York Knicks.
First name that came to my mind was Bernard King, who's a guy that I never watched in, like, live, but I've read up enough and I've watched enough clips and highlights and things to know that when that dude was going, you couldn't stop him. Now, I think Brunson is coming for that crown, and he may already have that crown, but it's also an extremely different league. And there are so many more ways not ways, because the three-pointer existed when Bernard King played, but, like, it wasn't a thing. And now that it's like added a third dimension, whereas Bernard King was like a two-dimensional player. Jalen Brunson gets to live in three dimensions. So I don't know if it's fair to compare those guys, but I would say King won and and Brunson's coming.
Carmelo Anthony?
Carmelo Anthony was much like his contemporaries, Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Tracy McGrady.
Because I think it's fair to say that he's a better scorer than those two, right?
I think he's I think he's the best bad shot maker.
Wow.
In the history of the Knicks.
Yeah. And Kobe was probably the best bad shot maker in the history of basketball.
And that is what people tend to value, and they don't mind as much the fact that he missed over 17,000 shots as between his regular season and playoff career combined. We'll just put that aside. Yeah, but like it depends what you value. If you're like, show me that guy's bag at its best, then yeah, Carmelo Anthony, sure, number one in Knicks history. If you're asking me, I forget what your phrasing was, but like
greatest scorer.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's King and then Brunson, and then I'll put. I was about to say I'll put Melo at number 3, but like Patrick Ewing scored a lot of freaking points for a lot of years. You know,
all-time Knicks starting 5.
Is it the 5 best players for their positions, or the 5 guys that like I want going to defend the human race against the aliens when they invade?
It's on you.
I mean, the former is easier. Okay, all-time Knicks starting 5. I'm not gonna go. Okay, Jalen Brunson. Shit, man. So Frazier has to be on the team. He's the only automatic inclusion into the team. Dave DeBusschere, maybe the best perimeter defender in one of the best perimeter defenders in the history of the league. I'm putting DeBusschere on my team. I'll put DeBusschere. I'll put Clyde. Melo or Brunson gives me a weak spot on D, but I gotta have Brunson on the team. So Brunson, Clyde, DeBusschere. Peak Ewing could defend. So I'll go with Ewing over Reed, although I feel badly doing that. And then the last spot, we're playing modern rules, so I could put DeBusschere at the 4. Screw it, give me. I'm deciding between Houston and Sprewell. One of my 2 guys.
I'm going with Houston because of the shooting.
For the shooting,
yeah.
Sprewell is traditionally my answer for my favorite all-time Knick, but
okay.
I think for this team, I think you probably need Houston's floor spacing. Yeah.
Better chance to win a championship this season, the Denver Nuggets or the New York Knicks?
The Knicks, because I think the Knicks have a better chance to make it through their conference. And, you know, anything could happen in the finals. And they have, I tell you, if it is the Nuggets waiting for them there, they have played the Nuggets really well over the last few years. That's all I'll give them that.
Most underrated Knick player of all time.
Of all time? Oh my God, what a great question. I could go in 1,000 different directions here, but I don't want to take up your entire day. Willis Reed.
But everybody knows he's great.
I don't think so. Let me say this: Willis Reed, one of the 50 greatest players ever, one of the 75 greatest players ever. He will forever be an MVP. I did for the 75-year anniversary of the league, a top 75 Knicks series for the Knicks Film School newsletter, and I got down to the top 3, and I ended up putting Reed 3rd, behind Clyde and Ewing. And I cannot tell you how many old heads I heard from who were like, listen, Sonny, I love you. I love the work you put into this. Willis Reed's the greatest Knick of all time. And like, and just the stories that the old timers would come out with. And I think he's a guy that, like, you look at his stats and, like, you know, obviously he had the MVP, but, you know, I think he, like, when you go toe to toe with, like, Wilt and Kareem and Russell, and you live to tell about it, I know it's a crazy. You can honestly go with Ewing for the answer too, but I'm going to go with Reed.
Jonathan, great stuff. You're always welcome back on the show. Let's talk about social media a little bit, just for 1 second. I know you're more active on Instagram now.
I'm trying, man.
So I got my Twitter issues, so we could talk about our issues. I got locked out of my account somehow. So when I tweet you the episode today, don't think it's a bot when you see 7 followers, all right? It's 1-2 combo. I'll send it to you. But now, and also I want the listeners to know I'm with the new Twitter. I got to let them know. Yes. Combo TV on YouTube. But for you, where can we find you on social media? YouTube, Instagram, which you've been more active. I'll send you some collabs on there. You talk to me, man. Twitter.
So my handle is the same for everywhere. It's JC Macri NBA.
Okay.
To say that I was out on Instagram for the majority of the time I've been doing this is an understatement. I just was like, there are certain things I had to cut out. Now I have a little bit more time on my hands, and it is a necessary evil. I recognize it as a necessary evil.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. Instagram is fun.
I shouldn't put it like that. It's a hell of a lot more fun than Twitter, I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna try to get more into that, and then Knicks Film School, like Knicks Film School on YouTube. The Knicks Film School podcast, the Knicks Film School newsletter on Substack. So yeah, JC Macri MBA or Knicks Film School. Those two things will get you access to everything that I do and put out. Thanks
for taking the time, Jonathan. It was great talking basketball with you twice over the course of these past 7 days. It was really fun, and it's so good to have you on.
And we will, like I said, we'll do a home and home. I'll get you on something in our orbit before too long. But thank you. This was great. Great to get the wheels turning before the preseason even begins. It's like it's like off-season runs. That's what I feel like.
Off-season runs. Get in your work. Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate you.
Yep.